Your phone buzzes. Work demands explode. Bills pile up, and suddenly you're snapping at your spouse over nothing. Blame is flying. Defenses are up. Both of you are shutting down. Sound familiar? Well, the damage runs deep. Resentment builds, physical closeness disappears. You feel alone in your own home. You wonder, will we ever get back to the love we once had? When you were dating, that love and attraction that you once had. Well, here's the truth. You are not broken. Thousands of couples are right where you are, stuck and exhausted, wondering if an extraordinary marriage is even real anymore. Let me tell you, it is. Well, today we're showing you the exact path of how to stop the blame game. Own your own power and rebuild intimacy and purpose. Real couples have done it, and you can too. This is part one of a power packed 5-part series using the book Empowered to Love, discovering your God given power to create a marriage you both love. Welcome to the Extraordinary Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Connie Duran. If you've ever felt like your marriage is more of a roller coaster ride than a romantic getaway, you're not alone. We all have our ups and downs, sometimes unintentionally hurting each other's feelings or missing the mark on what our spouse truly needs from us. Life gets busy, and it's easy to focus on irritations and failures instead of celebrating the love that brought you together in the first place. But fear not. I'm here to help you explore practical tools and heartfelt encouragement and rediscover what you love most about your spouse. Get ready to lean into each other's strengths and build something beautiful together. Not just survive, but thrive. I'll see you inside. Just over a year ago, my daughter and her husband attended one of the wind-shaped marriage retreats here in Rome, Georgia. A couple of years ago, I had started looking at those myself, and I was thinking, hey, we ought to do one of those. Well, first of all, it's my business. It's what I'm doing all the time now as I do these podcasts. But also every marriage and every place in your marriage, you need to continue to grow. So today I want to welcome my daughter, Melissa. She's going to share with us from that retreat that she went to at Windshape. Melissa, welcome.
Hi.
All right. So, Melissa, as we get started, it's important that people that are listening know that you are just a regular old busy mom. So tell us how long you've been married and a little bit about your family and the things that you like most.
So my husband, Michael, and I have been married for 16 years. We have 4 kids. We do have a blended family. That was one of the reasons we ended up going to the marriage intensive last year. Blended families are not easy, but we are making it work now and we communicate well. I have a senior in high school, 18, a 16-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So
Woo!
life is very busy, but fun. And I try to enjoy it. Yeah.
All right. And so you're also a working mom. So what all do you like to do?
I teach piano and voice from my home, and I do a little bit of Mary Kay and that kind of thing on the side. So I do stay
Ah,
busy.
all right. And I know you're also very involved in your church.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Definitely involved in the church choir and the music program at our church. Yeah.
All right. So as you went to this retreat, had you thought much about marriage retreats and personal growth and that kind of thing before that?
Not really marriage retreats. We had talked about doing some counseling, which we did do some counseling with a counselor one-on-one, but we had not really looked into doing like a week-long retreat, mainly because taking off a week of work for both of us, we're both self-employed, that'd be really hard to do, but definitely worth it in the end when we went.
Well, I know I have several friends that I have heard, that went to a marriage retreat or have done it all through the years of their marriage. People who've been, married a long time like me. Um, um, your dad and I, because I'm talking to my daughter, your dad and I, we have really not been to very many retreats. I think that because we both came from um, you know, families that both went to church, godly families, um, just not a lot of trouble. And then on top of that, our personalities were came together easily. Where sometimes people naturally have a little personality challenge in there, but yeah, we just got along. Or let's say he's super easygoing. Yeah,
Yes, he is.
he's very easygoing. So, but marriage growth is important, and people they they get help in their business to grow. Um, they look at all different areas in their lives and the importance of growth, but they forget about their marriage. And when you don't build that strong foundation at home, it affects everything else in your life.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people with kids, you are so focused on your kids, and your kids are the center of your universe. Your husband sort of gets left out sometimes. So,
You know what? I would say that's a definite because actually, I didn't experience what you experienced having a couple of kids to start with, but, one of your brothers that got married and he had 8 kids. She had 4, remarried. She had 4, he had 4, and they had a couple more. I realized that I could never really get to know her because I'm always busy with the kids. I'm always busy with the kids. So, yeah, blended families really have more challenge in that because so much attention goes to the children and you don't get a chance to really build that marital bond together, just being there for each other. And I could
mhm,
say at this point in life, since all my kids are grown and out of the house, it's really different because you get to focus on each other again.
yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be in the beginning. All right, so what are some of the differences when we talk about TV romance and, real life romance? What are do you see some differences in that? Or are they the same?
No, I feel like a lot of TV romances, they seem so perfect and they never have problems. Now, some shows are different, but everything ends like a happy ending, and that's just not life. Like, it's not always a happy ending. It's great when it is, but it's not always a happy ending. So,
Yeah, so that's TV romance. How about TV families? How do those appear usually?
well, actually, a lot of the shows that we've watched, they're legit, like Modern Family. Like, there's fighting with the kids, and they make them seem pretty real, actually. The shows that we watch. Yeah.
Yeah, so in every family, there is a little conflict, a little this and that. I think sometimes that the family TV shows of today empower children too much to be they talk
Oh,
back and we forget to have
yes.
respect, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and so I think, respect in a family is from the top down. It's from mom and dad, then the kids respect others, and that kinda thing. So TV romance really is something that oh, it's beautiful. It's great. But, it's not always real. Alright, so what have you learned about people and how they deal with stress differently?
Well, there's always the person that has explosive anger. When they are stressed out, there's also the person that becomes like a recluse, and they just sort of go into their little shell, the protective shell, and they just shut down. Um, I'm sort of in the middle of that. Sometimes I can get really loud and, not very happy, and my kids know when I'm not happy. But then sometimes I can always shut down and I just go to my room and like read a book because I just need that quiet time because I'm so stressed out.
Now when you think about to the intensive that you went to, um, think about the people without any names, of course, but think about the people and what kinda different stress reactions did you see with them?
Um, a lot of those too, actually. Um, some people they don't really shut down. They just become silent and they just don't say anything. Um, those were a lot of the couples that had a lot of problems because they weren't really sharing their feelings with each other and they weren't communicating very well. Um, yeah,
And once they opened up, because they opened up, probably at least by the middle or the towards the end,
yeah.
what could you see happening when they actually opened up with each other?
Oh, it was like a flower that was blooming slowly. It was really cool because these couples that were just hardly even like holding hands or like sitting close to each other, and you could see their body language. They were like sitting opposite, facing totally different directions. And then by the middle of the week, you slowly, their like knees started coming into each other, and like they would like just be touching each other's knees. That's it. And then by the end of the week, they were holding hands, and it was a really cool experience.
I love that. And, everybody should know the love languages. And we're not going to go in that today, but, you should know your spouse's love language and they should know yours. Maybe the top two love languages. There are a lot of different concepts that when you know just that concept, it gives you another edge and you can become closer. And then if you know, like motivators, what motivates your spouse, it makes you, come closer. So every little thing that you learn and the growth that you have in your marriage makes a difference. And I love how you describe that as a flower
Hmm.
blooming because some people cannot talk about something right off and it takes a little bit to open up. And even for me, sometimes if I'm really tired or I'm frustrated about something, I'm super open, super talkative. In fact, today before I got on, and I was being kind of silly, and I said to my husband, I said, "Well, you always know what I'm thinking, don't you? Because I express it verbally and physically. Yeah, a little goofy sometimes, but I express it, so he always knows. So he knows if I stop talking and I'm quiet and I won't really speak about it, he knows there's something wrong. And when we
Hmm.
first got married, I'd always say, "Nothing's the matter." He says, "What's the matter?" "Nothing." And I knew the shorter that nothing was, that there was something there, right? And I bet there's somebody else watching this or listening today that they're like, "Oh, yeah, that happens with us too." And that could be with the male or the female, right?
Yeah, Michael and I are like that too. Like he always knows when something's wrong,
Yeah, our
and I say
body starts
nothing.
to show
Yeah,
it. Yeah. Yeah. We say nothing, but we mean there's something, and you
yeah.
probably better figure it out. Also, I'll add to that, going to bed angry. Mm. So I know that, we would always talk it out, and that was a very good habit, was to talk it out before you go to bed. Angry and you might be up later, but boy, buddy, if I go to bed mad, I don't wake up no better. In fact, I'm madder.
Uh-oh.
So don't go to bed angry. Okay, with all of this, as we're talking about this intensive and the importance of opening up and talking and listening with one another, why do couples procrastinate? Why do they wait when they know they really need help? What do you think?
I think a lot of people are very private and they don't like to share. So, like going to a counselor or something is like airing out their dirty laundry, and they don't want people to know their problems and they can just fix it themselves. But that is a huge problem. I saw that in our marriage intensive that people didn't want to go to counseling and get the help, but then the other spouse did. So, uh, definitely procrastinating in that area can hurt your marriage a lot.
And what happens that I've seen is that people procrastinate and they wait until one day it's too late.
Mm,
Because some people, they don't say anything about it and they don't talk about it and they're quiet and they don't share. And then one day they just decide, I'm done.
hmm.
And I've seen that. And I've worked with people where they waited too late. And it's so sad to see that maybe it could have been that marriage could have been saved and they waited too late. And there's different personality styles, and a particular personality style, once they decide, they're pretty much done and there's hardly any hope, you know.
Hmm.
So I would say don't procrastinate. Figure out whether it's a church pastor, a counselor, a coach, a good, wise friend, somebody who's gone before you. That's why, older folks, they've been through a lot. And marriages that look good, they still been through some things and they learn how to work it out. So even if you don't have money to do anything, you can find somebody to confide in. But when you find somebody to confide in, they should always listen carefully, offer a little advice, maybe ask you questions to help pull out the challenges that are being had. That's like a coach. And uh, find somebody that's godly.
Hmm.
So you aren't misled. These days, there's so many things out there, and there's a lot of misleading people. So you want to really make sure that you confide in a reliable, godly kind of person on that. But don't procrastinate until it's too late. I like the serenity prayer. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Because when it comes to our spouses, we cannot change their personality. We
Mm-mm.
can't change whether they're neat or messy. We can't change, hey, if they have a bad temper, we can't change that, but we can figure out how to not ignite it, right?
Don't push the
So,
buttons.
yeah, learn not to push their buttons. That's right. All right. So, Melissa, what does the reactive cycle look at? Because, you know, that's something that we all have trouble with.
Yeah. So the reactive cycle, I like to also call it the crazy cycle, where you're reacting to something and then it doesn't get fixed, and then he's reacting to something and it doesn't get fixed, and then you're just on this like crazy circle, and nobody can get off because nobody's really communicating the problem in the first place, and there's pushing it down, I guess you could say, and just another one arises and another one arises, and nothing ever gets fixed.
And when you are communicating, it's like you're impatient with each other.
Yes.
And sometimes when we get irritated, we say things we don't really mean.
Yes.
Yes. Or sometimes when we get irritated, oh, it all comes out, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. In the book, it has um, these letters that it stands for. It is ESPM. ESPM. Taking personal responsibility, emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental well being. Um, so, what do you remember on that? Is this talking about that emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental well being? What is the importance in self care?
So first off, a lot of people get married and they think that their spouse is supposed to fix all their problems. That if they're upset, their spouse is supposed to fix that. If they're like any problem, their spouse is responsible for fixing that, and that's not the case. And so one thing we learned in our intensive is that you are responsible for your own self-care. Your spouse cannot fix the problems for you. They can be there to support you, but not fix them. So it's really important that if you do have emotional, mental, spiritual, any kind of problem that you're working through, that you can go talk to a counselor yourself about those things, or have a very close friend to confide in, to be able to work through those issues, because you have to be a strong person yourself with all four of those things to be a good spouse, in my opinion.
And the truth is, when we get married, a lot of times we bring in childhood problems, teenage problems, young adult problems, old romance problems, old marriage problems for people who are remarried. Um, and if we don't stop and have self care and figure out what went wrong, or why we're having trouble, or why we're frustrated, um, then we bring that into that new relationship,
Yeah.
right?
One of the questions, which I know we're not doing the whole care cycle today, but one of the questions is, when something's upsetting you and you're like really emotional, or like not okay mentally about this, you have to stop and say, Lord, like, why am I feeling this way? Like, what is triggering me to make me react this way? And that's just one of the questions that, you can ask yourself, because usually it's not your spouse and what they did. It's something else that you're dealing with that you haven't communicated yet.
That's exactly right, and a lot of times it's us, we're frustrated, we're tired, something else is going on, something else has happened in our life, and if we don't take care of ourselves to figure out what those things are, so we have to get to be a healthy human being
Yeah.
so that then we can bring that into our marriage and, and grow and build a wonderful relationship there. Alright, I like to use one of those things, um, deposits and withdrawals. And in every relationship, I think when you have good self care, you're all put together, you got it going on, you are able to respect your spouse, and uh, you do fill their cup a little bit with love and
Mhm.
thoughtfulness and kindness, speaking good to each other. Um, but if you're married to somebody and you're having a super challenge and there's a lot of friction in the house, then there are withdrawals. And literally, if you're screamed at, that's a withdrawal. If somebody's not listening to you, like they're acting like you don't count, that's a withdrawal from your love bank. Um, and So some people are dealing with that all the time, and that is a place of, I think did we mention the crazy cycle yet?
Yes, the reactive cycle. We talked about the crazy cycle.
Yeah, that puts you in that crazy cycle, and sometimes you don't know how to get out of it, but self-care is so very important. Depositing into yourself sometimes instead of, I talk about love deposits into your spouse and the same for them with you and the withdrawals. But the truth is, you first have to be healthy yourself, and that means
Hmm.
self care. So
Yes.
tell me some of the things that you do as a busy mom and a working mom that help keep your, um, self care, help keep your bucket full, your cup full.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot with my kids. And so I like to do play dates with other families that have kids same age. And that way I can fill my cup by talking to the mom and just, chatting about life and the fun things we've done. I also try to meet friends, just one on one friends for breakfast or lunch. Um, I'm very social. And so my cup definitely gets filled when I am with my friends and just talking about life and the good things. Also reading. Reading is a really big one for me. So like I need to like just get away. I just go pick up my book and I read for like 30 minutes and escape into my little story and then come back to real life.
And so it's finding those things that you enjoy. Now, you are very much a people person, Melissa. And so there are people out there that are the opposite of that. You're an extrovert. Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's
Yeah.
those introverts. And I think when people are introverted to fill their cup and to deposit into their own self care, they need a hot bath by themselves.
Yeah.
They got to close the door. Yes, reading a book, that works. Taking time by yourself, and even introverts may have a great friend that they like to have lunch with or do something with. But it's important for people to figure out what they need because first you got to be healthy in
Yeah.
mind and spirit before you can pour in and have a great marriage. This is true. All right. So I have in Mark 12, it says from 30 and 31 verses, it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this love your neighbors as yourself. There is no command greater than these. Mark 12, 30 through 31. And love, it really comes from God. Originally, God loves, right? And we live in a hectic, crazy world these days where we see lots of, I'm sorry, but hateful people out there, and hateful people spread hateful stuff. They hate on everybody. They're like so not happy. But, when you are loving and kind and you have, um, God's heart, a loving heart, you see everyone in a positive, happy perspective, it makes a lot of difference. Everyone, though, in a relationship, coming into marriage or forever in marriage, is not a responsible, empowered adult. Why do you think this is? Why does that happen?
Um, you're asking why they don't think they're a what
Yeah,
again?
why does this happen where every man and woman going into marriage is not an empowered, responsible adult?
Well, let's see. Um, I think a lot of times when you come into marriage, you think that you're going to become like one with your spouse. And so now you don't have to worry about just being your own little person. Now you're one person, but that's not true. So, like, when you're coming into marriage, you're your own responsible adult, but then God is the center. And
That's right.
so, and that's really important for people to understand that you're not melding into this one person. You are still your own individual responsible adult self, but God is now the center of your relationship.
Oh, I like that. That was very good. I'm also thinking about you're raising kids. You have, you have your two teenagers, but then you have your two younger kids. What are you doing to pour into the kids that will help them be a responsible adult?
I ask my kids a lot of questions actually. So when they're upset or something, I always like if my youngest is upset about something, I'm like, okay, now is this really helping you by acting this way? And like she always responds, no, not really. And then I'm like, "Well, what can we do to change this? Like, how can we change this circumstance right now to make it better?" Like, I ask a lot of questions. So I think asking your kids questions makes them think through the situation instead of fixing it and telling them the answers constantly, because that's not helping them think. Um, and they need to do that as they get older. So it's important.
Thinking.
Yes.
Thinking, what a novel idea. I think you also hold your kids accountable,
Yes.
you know, accountable, that comes also by being consistent and, deciding what's most important,
Yes.
and, sometimes as parents, I mean, I remember, whenever I became a parent, all I could do was pass along what my mom taught me.
Yes.
No, that's all I could do is pass along what my mom taught me, and, turns out she was pretty good, I think, so hopefully I did a good job with you too, right?
Yes.
Everybody doesn't get that, and they sometimes people come from families where, I don't know, there's an angry parent. I was listening to another podcast yesterday, and, sometimes there's an angry parent, an irresponsible parent, a drinking parent, a parent on drugs. I mean, a parent who's having to do it all, they don't have a spouse. There's so many instances these days where people come from such great, great hardship, and they even more need to, I don't know, read a book, find a friend, get some wisdom, counseling, whatever, so that they can figure it out. This goes back to that self-care, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to the self-care. All right, so let's define a healthy marriage. What does a healthy marriage look like?
In my opinion, a healthy marriage is first and foremost keeping God the center, and communication. Communication is key. If you are not communicating with your spouse doesn't know when you're upset. Your spouse doesn't know, you know, if something's even wrong, or if something bothered you. So it's really important to have a strong relationship with God first, but then also the communication is definitely second, in my opinion.
If you look it up on Google, you're gonna find that communication and money are your top 2 challenges in just about every marriage, and that's because people communicate differently or don't communicate, people spend their money differently,
Yeah.
and whatever we believe it strongly usually, don't we?
Yeah, one thing that we learned at the intensive, which we don't always do now, but was checking in with your spouse. So, like when there's something wrong that you need to talk to your spouse about, hey, babe, or is this a good time to talk about this? Like, and if it's not, then, they can go have their care cycle or, just sort of check themselves, make sure they're mentally okay. And then they can talk to you about whatever the important issue is. Because
Don't try to
sometimes when you're in a bad mood and your spouse comes to you and they're like, "I need to talk to you about this," that is not the time to talk about it.
That's about what I was gonna say. Like, there's times, a lot of times your dad asked me to make decisions at like 9:30 at night. He goes, "Oh, we need to talk about this and decide on this." And I'm like, "I'm tired. I can't make a decision on that." He's gotten used to it by now. But if we're not feeling well or we're already feeling frustrated, we know it's not a good time to talk about something, right?
Yeah,
But a healthy marriage is being kind and loving and thoughtful. It's really treating your spouse, I'm adding to what you said,
yeah,
treating your spouse in the same way that you treat that most respected person that you see out. Like, it might be the church pastor or your a teacher that you had or your best friend. It's like, do we teach? Do we teach? Do we treat everyone with the respect that we like to get? Right? Do
yeah,
we? How do we respect people? All right, so defining healthy marriage. Ephesians 5:31 through 32. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. That is one of the big things when we get married is, hey, we get to be out on our own, right?
yeah,
Yeah, make our own decisions, decide where we wanna live, how we want our life to be. Um, but one of the big things in getting married is confiding in each other and sharing our burdens, sharing the things that are exciting, um, and the more that you do that, and the more that you do things together, um, all these things come together to make a healthy marriage.
Yeah, I think that's the verse that they were talking about in chapter 1, where a lot of people think they take one flesh as becoming one person, but you are still your individual person with God in the center. And
In this,
so, yeah, so that's one of the verses that I think I had read in there where people confuse it, thinking that oh, I'm just this one person now. Me and my husband are one, and we have to think the same and we have to be the same. And no, that's not how it is.
and the true good part is that you're literally a partnership.
Yeah.
Good, healthy marriage, there's an awesome partnership. One person's talented at these things, one's good at those. We were booking some airline flights, and we have to book our seats together, and that they're to Europe. And so there's 2 or 3 or 4 flights on this trip that we're gonna be taking, and I took my ticket. I'm like, "Honey, I'm sending you my ticket because will you handle that and get our seats together? Because I hate those details." So, it is a partnership, and each bringing their talents and, these kind of things to that partnership, and it's better th and 2 are better than 1. That's in the Bible too. 2 are better than 1, right?
Yes.
When everybody's got self-care and it's a good relationship. Alright, so let's talk about some of the reasons, that this is important to have a healthy marriage
Why
coming
is it
together.
important?
Yeah,
I mean, your children, if you have kids, they're watching you. And so you are modeling for them what they will have in the future. So if you're modeling a healthy marriage where mom and dad are both communicating, then more than likely your kids are also going to be in a relationship where they're communicating with their girlfriend or boyfriend or their spouse. Um, that's one really important reason. Um, yeah, go ahead.
I call that the trickle-down effect.
Yeah.
It is the trickle down effect. I always say that whenever a kid is having trouble at school and they're a bully and they're being mean and they're not talking nice, trickle down effect probably coming from home. Not always, right?
Yeah.
But because kids have little quirks here and there, but trickle down effect, yeah. So it's important. Um, I mean, it's just important if you want to live a lifetime together. I've been married over 40 years. If you want to live a lifetime together, if you want it to be good, then, a healthy marriage is important, right?
Yes.
All right. So the book talks about keeping God at the center of your marriage. And you just talked about that a little bit. So I want everybody to picture 3 circles, 3 circles side by side. Husband's on one side, wife is on the other, with God in the center circle. So why is this important? And you touched on it a little bit earlier.
It's just important to keep God at the center of your universe pretty much, because if you're making your husband the center of your universe, then you're leaving out the most important aspect, and that's God and his leadership that he can have over your life.
Because God is the creator of
Yes.
all of us. He created the world, he created the people, he created everything. And so, as far as looking to anybody, he's got it together. He knows everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's wise. All right. So keeping God as the center. And we can do that by praying together, reading our Bible together, attending church together. And sometimes, one spouse won't go to church. And if they won't go, then go ahead and go yourself. And I like to say, even one spouse working on personal growth, trying to understand themselves and their spouse will make a difference in their relationship because it helps you keep a better attitude, a better outlook, and it helps you keep hope.
Yeah.
Because without hope, I mean, like, we're done for. It's like
Yeah.
hope is the fuel that just keeps you going.
It's funny you mentioned that. My husband and I were talking about that this morning about how even if one spouse is working on the marriage, 50% better is better than none.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it makes a big difference if just one spouse is making the difference. And usually, I think what happens is when that one spouse is putting in that 50% of their 100% kind of thing, then the other spouse tends to start catching on and starts trickling in his part or her part too.
Absolutely, and sometimes that's slow, and sometimes it's quicker. Most of the time, it's slow.
Yeah.
But that also that goes back to self-care again, and if you are the spouse that's putting in all the time to keep your marriage afloat, then you really need to have that self-care. It's super, super important to keep your own cup full.
Yes.
All right, some Christians say love is almost mystical, the result of a complicated combination of attraction, chemistry, and numerous strategies aimed at keeping love alive and the fires of passion burning. It is said if the flame goes out, love is dead. Do you think that love is a feeling or a commitment?
Oh, most definitely a commitment. Now, it can be both. So, love is a feeling that I feel towards my husband and my children and my family, but it's also a commitment and a choice. You choose to love somebody. You and your wedding vows, you for better or for worse. So, it's a choice. And I think a lot of people give up on marriage so quickly because they're like, oh, this is just hard. Well, life is hard. And if you want to choose to love this person that you married, then you're going to have to do that through better and through worse. So,
There again, self-care, keeping your own cup full, right?
yeah.
Okay, so I also would think that this goes back to those extroverts and those introverts. There's this big divide between people who are very people oriented and love to be out there at the party, at the beach, having a good time, learning something new, adventure. And then the folks that need that quiet time and to be by themselves. I think that probably more extroverts are feelers,
Mm.
I'm guessing, more feelers, and that more, introverts are more on the committed side. Like, they don't need much change. Introverts don't need much change. They're happy with kinda status quo, how things are going, but extroverts and introverts, excuse me, extroverts need change. There's 2 personalities that go into that, and both those personalities they need change. I would say that it is a feeling for them and commitment for the others, although we, like you said, have to have both. So, a feeling, what happens when it's feelings? What happens with all the things we've been talking about today if it's a feeling?
Oh, well, feelings come and go. So, there's nothing permanent with feelings.
And feelings come and go, and if my spouse is yelling at me, my feeling is, "Ugh," right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. If, my spouse is not home on time or they're not home half the time or they're not spending enough time with me or doing this or this or this, then feelings, like you said, yeah, you start to feel distant, more distant,
Yeah.
from your spouse. The commitment is integrity, honesty, follow through with what you say you'll do. Practice. You gotta practice the things that you wanna see. Action, understanding, and I'll add a decision.
It's
Like,
intentional too.
say that again?
It's intentional.
Intentional.
Yeah.
Yes. Commitment is intentional.
Yeah.
So, as we look at those, I would say, because it's really a thing where half the people say it's a feelings, half of them say it's commitment. I'm kinda, like, worried if people say, "Oh, it's a commitment." I tease with my husband sometimes I say, "Hey, we have a contract." Right? We have a contract. Um, but I think, if it's solely commitment, I think you've lost the feeling, right?
Yeah.
And if it's solely a feeling, then you may find yourself not committed whenever there's troubled waters going on, right?
Yeah. It's important to be in the middle.
Well, all right. So this is from Empowered to Love. Understanding God and his love, we like to view the heart as having two doors. A door that connects us to God, our source, and a front door that connects us to other people. Do you remember studying that?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah.
So God is love, and um we like to view the heart as having two doors. The top door connects us to God. And, that's reading our Bible, praying, going to church, connecting with other couples who are godly. And then the side door or the front door is connected to other people. And if we have a good relationship with God, then we can have a good relationship with other people. And that's an absolute truth, isn't it?
Yes.
That's an absolute truth. Well, this is the beginning, like I said, of a 5-part series. And we've gone as far as we can go this week. But next week, we will have part 2 of this series. And if you'll watch the podcast, you'll see that. And we're on Apple, Spotify, and at theextraordinarymarriage.com/podcast. Melissa, do you have anything else you would like to say today before we finish?
Not really. I'm good.
Well, I welcome you and I thank you for coming today and sharing from your wind shape intensive. And hopefully, there's somebody that heard something from this that makes a difference for them because that's what we're here for at the Extraordinary Marriage. I'm Connie Durham, your host, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Extraordinary Marriage Podcast with me, Connie Durham. Remember, every marriage has its bumps in the road, but with the right tools and encouragement, you can turn those bumps into stepping stones. Focus less on frustrations and more on what you love about each other. Grow together, laugh together, and love forever. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Join me next time as we keep exploring how you can build the kind of marriage that feels extraordinary. Until then, keep showing up, keep listening, and keep loving. You've got this.